Hell yeah, did it again. No foot down, baby. We up here. So Blackfork Gravel Grinder 2024. The race was on Saturday, but I was heading down on Friday. Everyone's schedule this year was a little bit different, so I ended up heading down alone, unfortunately. The good thing is this is a really nice drive. It's not a lot of boring freeway driving. It's actually pretty rolly countryside, so I actually always enjoy it. About an hour and 20 minutes from the Akron area. It's also about an hour 20 minutes from the Columbus area, which is cool because I got to see a lot of Columbus friends there as well. We got situated at the cabins we were staying at, which were about 1.7 miles down the road, Mohican Reservation. And so then we decided to ride to the start of the race on Friday for the packet pickup. And we got down there. We were going to get some food and just hang out. If they have the same food truck they had there this year, next year that you'll see, I would say skip it. I'm not going to go into details, but everybody who got something from it has a story. Basically, it's people who are trying to make a buck on food, not people who care about food. I would find it hard to believe otherwise. Anyways, hung out, got to talk to a lot of cool people while we were sitting there having a beer. There was a Columbus brewery that was pouring beers for everyone that night. So yeah, met Josh, met Ryan, tons of people. So some old friends, people who knew the channel. In the morning, the ride doesn't actually start till 10, which personally I like. So we got up and it was easy to enjoy our coffee, get the breakfast in, and get our bikes all situated and all that. I also loved being this close to the start, so we didn't need to load up. You actually got a little warm-up ride riding to the start of the event. I really like that. It's less stressful for me than getting in the car and all that kind of stuff, especially driving from home, so just a little ride down to the beginning. There's Josh, who also does the marketing for the brewery. We got to chat a lot before and after the race. Met up with a lot of the Akron and Northeast Ohio homies right here before the start. The start's always funny. They're like, ready, set, go. But then there's a little pinch point. So, you're not really moving right here at the beginning. You can see my buddy Woody there in the Loud Joy Machines kit working on moving up. I've always talked about this at the beginning of the race. The first couple climbs are kind of a mess because they're very steep and they're very hard and not everyone's prepared for it. So a lot of people do try and jump out and get a little ahead of the pack. We moved a little bit, but I didn't get far enough to avoid a lot of the chaos. There was still a ton of people around by the time we hit the first gravel climb. So I said a lot of things about cycling etiquette after last year's Black Fork, and some people seem to get really upset with that. Not the majority again, but there were some people who were really hard-headed and really said some stuff that I thought was ridiculous. And some people who were newer to the sport that kind of said they felt offended by me saying that. I wasn't talking to the noobs, and I made that very clear. I was saying, if you're new to this, take this as advice for ways to behave at events like this. If you've been around for a while, this is just stuff you should know. And so those people getting angry, I don't care about. And I was completely vindicated with everything I said being put into the final instruction email from the organizers of Black Fork. So there's just some stuff that you need to do when you ride in a group like this on some fairly sketchy roads, in a big crowd. So right there, I was kind of stuck behind that guy, but people were coming behind me way faster. So I wasn't going to jump out into that line and mess up other people's day to save a few seconds. And then coming up right here, we're going down there's a sandy patch. It's rough. It's a little bit rocky. And I get it. I'm not a strong descender. I'll talk about that a little more coming up. But there's a guy up here who just slammed on his brakes and stopped with no warning. The way the guy in front or right behind him didn't run into him is amazing. I was able to go around. Right here, this guy just stops, dead stops. If you are ever going to need to stop, and even though he was on the side, yell stopping. That is just simple etiquette to let people know what's going on. You've got to be aware that we're on a downhill and there's people behind you, So just some of those little things. I felt like the email had helped. When I went up the first two big hills, I was able to make it with a good line. And there were also some other walkers who were helping marshal, which I thought was really cool. They were yelling, they were looking back and yelling, move to the sides. There's riders coming through. When we were coming through on the second climb, the middle is the best line. There's a third hill that's a dead end, closed road. It's a really, really tough ride. And I called out to a couple people to move, and they were very respectful. There happened to be a section where I needed to cross from one good line to another through a washout. I slipped out, and I had to put a foot down. Thankfully, I wasn't in anyone's way. There's another thing I was saying, too, last year that I just think people took wrong. I fully understand that, like, when you're trying to get up a steep climb and there's lots of people around, sometimes you have every intention of making it, and you just slip out like I did in that situation, and it causes a cascading effect. That is fully part of gravel races and big groups event. It's unfortunate for the people behind, but it happens. What's not cool is you have no chance of making it and you're in the way, or you are going to hop off your bike and walk, and just to do that in front of people with no warning. Never cool. Never will be cool. If you think otherwise, you're wrong. And again, if you're new to the sport, take this as just a piece of advice. Be audible. In a clip a couple moments back there's a guy who just blasted by me super close when there was no one else on the road and never said anything. What if I had swerved to avoid a pothole or something like that? Just give a simple on your left, coming through. Plus, it makes it, a lot of times, I'm happy to move over a little bit when I'm especially not feeling comfortable on a descent. I'd rather get out of your way and let the fast guys by. There are times in this ride where I go down some less favorable lines towards the beginning, just to let the people who are really good at descending and trying to move go. 12 miles in. Doing good. Only put a foot down once. And it was my own fault, so I'm happy about that. Not happy about the foot, but happy that someone else didn't ruin it for me. Let's go. So I had chosen to ride my Gunnar, which is a sweet bar, steel, American-made steel bike, the way I have it set up. There are times like this, like on those bike pass sections, where it would have been nice to have my drop bar gravel bike. But as mentioned, I'm just not a super strong descender, especially on these wet gravel roads. And some are so steep you can't even see where the downhill is going to go because they curve off to the side, and then the end hits all this washboard or comes to a stop sign. With my skill level, I was happier to be on the 55 millimeter tires I have on there and the sweep bars. That's just, you know, my personal comfort level. So to give up a little bit of speed in the flats and, you know, maybe some of the little paved downhills, you can see my setup here. Because the other thing is I'm not racing, you know, I'm going out to put in a good effort, but as I titled this video and everything, my goal, the way I ride this, is to get through the whole thing and not try to put a foot down. As I mentioned, I did on one really tough section. Can you see anything? Mud splattered. And I stopped at the second aid station to refill my water bottles. It was only in the 60s, but it felt really warm, super humid, obviously. As you can see, it's been raining off and on. This feels exactly like the towns in Higher Ground Hundo right here. Johnstown, PA. Hope Cyclery, RIP. So yeah, that was the challenge I just tried to give myself, just to make it up all the hills without putting a foot down. I was just really spinning a lot. I wasn't really trying to crush them in any other kind of way. That barn has a sign that says food and restrooms. Bakery and deli. I could go for a Sammy about now. I'll have to stick with sugar though. Yeah, it was kind of a new one for me. Usually I'm fine with just my snacks and my carbs, but man, I really started to feel like 3/4 of the way through this ride, I wanted like real food, like an actual sandwich. There was a super busy road, a detour that we had to go out on, and a pace line passed me. And I just jumped on, hung on, and took that draft. It was great because it was windy and it was exposed. Sweep bar guy doesn't need to pull, right? Not gonna lie, in a world full of carbon drop bar bikes, the sweep bar steel bike with flat pedals does get a lot of looks. Whenever you're down by the river, you know you're about to be climbing. I did have a conversation with a guy who thought I was riding a total cruiser bike. I'm like, no, this is a very capable ATB. It's just a lot more fun set up this way, and I'm not a racer. But I kind of busted his balls for a second, but tried to let him know I was just joking, so hopefully he took it that way. I think that's the section of the race where the two routes were together for a while, and last year I saw Erin. Didn't see her this year, but I hope she's out here doing okay. It really do be beautiful out here. So I also wanted to say, as my goal being not to walk the hills, that's not to shame anyone who did. There are a lot of people who walk the hills that were beating me easily. My one buddy who said he walked a couple of the hills beat me by a good 40 minutes. So it's not to disparage that at all. It's just saying that was a personal goal of mine. And again, I'm not racing. I didn't care about my overall time. I was actually really happy. A lot of my PRs from this race were on the descents. So to know I improved in that way a little bit felt good. I knew I did a lot better last year being on the Gunner, and then so I was able to step it up another notch this year of just getting a little more comfortable, even though the conditions were actually a little bit worse.
Okay.
As you can see, I did spend a lot of time alone at this ride, but I also got to ride around some other people, as I've mentioned. Buddy Garrett, we were yo-yoing at certain parts out here too, and always chatting a little bit and giving each other some encouragement. That's one of the things that makes it more fun about doing an event as opposed to just going out and riding these roads at different time.
I always think this part is so cool. First time I did it, took a picture with my phone, put my phone in my pocket. My phone turned on and recorded a lot of weird video. And ruined my Strava, which scared Erin. She was wondering where I was. Yeah, you know this.
I do want to delve a little deeper into some of the issues that go with gravel events more. I know I talked about some at the beginning. I just don't want to make this whole thing come across as negative because I did really overall enjoy the experience. But there's certain issues with the, the people who are out just to try and finish versus the racers. And a lot of that stuff actually comes across really well and I think is just good for the events in general. But there are downsides. There are some of these people, like I said, who are just way out there in the middle and are just acting like jocks, and it's just really not necessary. If you're around the guy in jeans and a t-shirt and you're coming in 35th in your age group, maybe just be nice to people, but we'll get into that later.
Stayed dry for the last few hours. Now it seems like we're about to get soaked, and it actually feels good. I'm hot.
So I'd love to hear another opinion on this topic. I'm not someone who likes to look at how long is left or how much climbing there is, or I don't use my computer to show me what the profiles of the climbs look like. I have an idea. I've done the ride before, and I know in general what it is. But there was a detour that made the ride 3 miles longer. So I made the mistake of thinking I was closer to be finished a couple times. And one's because I looked at my computer wrong. The second time was because I thought I should just be 3 miles from the finish. So I picked up the pace and tried to put in more of what I had left than I probably should have been doing. But again, maybe that was a benefit to put me on stronger. What do you guys do? Do you look at how much elevation and how many miles you have left a lot? Or do you like to not know and just kind of be out there going for it?
About to do the hill I was afraid of. I think 2 more big ones, 5 more miles. Gotta make it up. Last climb of the day time. Let's get it done.
Granted, I do understand that if you're racing and trying to measure your effort and know when to attack and need to know your pace if you're up there near your limit, paying attention to all that stuff is a different story than what I'm doing, which is going out there for a ride. Where as mentioned, I'm just trying to get a good ride in and, get my way up all the hills and have a good day out. So this is the run into the finish. Annoyingly, I thought I had turned my camera off, so when I went to turn it back on to get the finish and everything like that, I completely missed it. I thought I was filming me coming through the finish line, getting my beer hand up, giving Erin a hug because she was there for me, and I did not. So, a YouTube failure right there. But again, there's a barbecue after the ride, and hung out, got to tell all the stories, got to hear how everybody else did. A lot of fun. We hung out for a while. I think me and Ben were, from our crew, about the last to leave. We rolled out from the race area around 5:30, and we headed back to our cabin area. You could see we chilled down by the river for a little bit before we got a fire going, ordered some pizza, and just had a good evening of everybody feeling pretty accomplished. Like I've said, anyone who finishes Blackfork, you've had a hard day out. It doesn't matter how hard you are riding. You cannot ride 5,800 feet of elevation and not have a hard ride, and some of it is just steep and loose, as I've been saying. So glad I went out and did it again this year. Like I say, it's the ride I love to hate, but I always end up having a good time. And I do love so much of the community, despite what I do take issue with sometimes, but in general, it's a huge positive experience. We got some lunch at breakfast at Lando's Mohican Castle. I didn't know they had like a restaurant open to the public. I had a friend who got married there years ago, so I had been there before. But everyone was it was rainy in the morning, so mountain biking didn't seem like an option, and everyone was pretty tired, so it was just head back home. The next day, I did go out for just like a 15-minute flat recovery ride. Personally, I feel like I need to get my body moving at this age instead of sit down the day after a big effort like that. All right, so let's hear those opinions in the comments. Give this video a like. I'll see you in the next one.